Minister, I'm asking a priority question to update the review of gun licensing laws, to update us on the review of the gun licensing laws, because in every parish and community right across Ireland, people are concerned. The people who engage in the lawful leisure activity, which includes the use of legally held and licensed firearms, they are concerned that there will be further restrictions placed on them in terms of obtaining licences and permits to hold such firearms. And I also tabled the question because the representative associations are hotly disputing the basis of the recommendations. So if you could address those.
Yeah. Well, thank you for raising this issue, Deputy Collins. Following public safety concerns raised by An Garda Síochána in relation to specific categories of firearms, a joint departmental An Garda Síochána working group was established to examine the issue in October 2013. And as you are aware, I published the report, as I felt I should, on the 13th of November. The report outlines the views expressed by An Garda Síochána that centre-fire handguns are primarily designed to kill human beings and therefore pose an unacceptable risk to society and should no longer be licensed in this jurisdiction. That was a very strong view and is the strong view of the Gardaí. There were similar concerns in relation to non-Olympic type .22 calibre handguns, centre-fire semi-automatic rifles and shotguns capable of holding more than 3 rounds. Many of these types of firearms have been used either in murders, attempted murders and gangland shootings in this jurisdiction or in mass shootings in other jurisdictions. On this basis, the working group have recommended the prohibition of the firearms to which I have referred. These make up a very small proportion of currently licensed firearms. It is important to note that a very wide range of firearms, making up at least 94% of all currently licensed firearms, will not be affected by the proposed change. That's 94% of all of the firearms licensed in this state will not be touched by the proposed changes. And again, I want to emphasise, this is simply a report of the working group. No decision has been taken on the recommendations. This includes the ones that are not affected. It includes shotguns holding not more than 3 rounds, hunting-style rifles, Olympic standard handguns, etc. And I think this point will be of particular reassurance to many of those in agriculture and rural communities, as well as hunting and sporting interests. The report also refers to difficulties in the interpretation of the legislation expressed by members of the judiciary. With respect to the report's recommendations on proposed changes and restrictions, I do want to reiterate very clearly that I have not reached any final conclusions, and I repeat my commitment that I will not make any final decisions until I have had the opportunity to consider all of the submissions which are made, and I have met the key stakeholders, including the organisations that represent those who use firearms for sporting purposes. I have referred the report to the Justice Committee, who have asked for submissions, who are going to hold hearings, and the deadline for the receipt of submissions is the 31st. I extended that as well when I was contacted by the stakeholders who expressed concerns about the recommendations in the report. They're anticipating decisions, and as I say, no decisions have been made. A consultation process is underway, but I have outlined the Garda Commissioner's concerns and the concerns of An Garda Síochána to you about some of the firearms which are under discussion.
Thank you. Deputy Collins.
Thanks, Minister. Just to say that my party supports the review of the legislation and believes that updated legislation will lead to safer communities. But we also believe that the stakeholders who legally use these firearms need to be consulted properly, and I welcome the fact that you have said that. But the review must distinguish between those who hold firearms legally and those who engage in criminality. And that's an issue which the associations have raised. Now, we heard from the Garda Inspectorate as late as yesterday in terms of pulse, and in reply to a number of written parliamentary questions that I tabled to you, I got a note from you this morning, Minister, and this relates to the fact that the representatives' associations are disputing the statistical information, or the lack of it, upon which the basis of the recommendations flow. And it said, An Garda Síochána advised that it is not possible to accurately identify from a central database such as Pulse the number of occasions an unlicensed or licensed firearm was used in the commission of a crime. Another parliamentary question I got
Sorry, Deputy.
in the same note.
Time, please.
Okay, I'm finishing, Chair. You said to me, it is not possible to extrapolate from Pulse the number of refusals which were appealed to the courts or the number of applications which were successful in the courts. It's also worth
Sorry,
noting...
Deputy, I have to...
Yeah,
I'll let you back in again.
Okay.
Minister. Yeah. I'm just conscious, you see, if people go over time, it prevents others from reaching their questions, so we have to stick to the time limits. Thank you.
Well, I have made the point that there will be full consultation. I mean, there is going, the Justice Committee, of which you're a member, Deputy, and Deputy Staunton is the chair, I have no doubt will do excellent work in getting to the bottom of these statistics and examining them in detail. Now, clearly, the Pulse system, and this is a different issue, but I have set up a working group in relation to technology on Garda Síochána, and we have, as a government, committed to upgrading the technology, and I accept what the inspector said yesterday in relation to the systems, and there have been a number of meetings of that working group already to deal with the technological needs of Garda Síochána, very clearly identified in the Guard Inspector's report. I would say that there have been firearms applications that have been refused, and this is by the District Court, as you know, in the period. Now, it's a 4-year period. It's from 2009 to 2014, and I gave you this information. 1,363 applications were refused by the court. Now, the court, you know, they hear the evidence and they make a decision. And clearly, you will have heard the figures, as I have, of the numbers that are people go in and they ask for the decision to be overturned, and they have been successful in a number of cases. But as I say, there is going to be full consultation. But you know, this is an issue of concern to the wider population as well.
I recognise that, Minister, and it is a concern, obviously, but it's also a concern to the people who legally hold and use these firearms for recreation and for sport. Now, you mentioned the judiciary, and it is a fact that there is no record of any member of the judiciary expressing difficulty in interpreting the legislation. And I think that needs to be cleared up, because that is being left hanging out there. I don't know who came up with that notion that the judiciary are having difficulty in interpreting the legislation, because there's no record of any member of the judiciary saying that. So I have two supplementary questions for you. Are you happy, are you satisfied that the information underpinning the report is accurate and correct, given the reply which I received from you this morning on foot of the written parliamentary questions? And furthermore, would you consider allowing the Garda Inspectorate to engage in an exercise and a review with a view to making recommendations around the whole process and system of licensing of firearms in this country?
Well, I think it would be premature to suggest that. I mean, we have a process set up, we have a report which will be examined by the committee. You'll have an opportunity to make those points there and to examine them. I would also mention, and I want to welcome your support of the review, because one of my predecessors, for example, former Minister Dermot Ahern, he said during the debate when the licensing system was last amended that he was determined to ensure that a gun culture would not be allowed to form in the state. And he also said that he would, in consultation with the Garda Commissioner, keep the situation on firearms licensing under review in the interests of public safety. So I welcome the fact that you have said you support the review that's taking place. Obviously, I want the best outcome possible in the interests of public safety, but also very much in the interests of those representative groups, the shooting clubs, those who have an interest in this area from a sporting perspective. I've already said the percentage, 94% of the firearms that are licensed at present are not even mentioned, are not included in the recommendations of this report. So we're looking at the 6% where there are different views. And Garda Síochána will come in, will make presentations, and I think you've had an opportunity indeed perhaps to do that already even. So the statistics which they're presenting can be questioned, and if you have concerns about the quality of the research in the report, well, clearly we can do everything possible to make sure that whatever decisions are taken, and no decision has been taken, and I want to make sure that this gets a thorough airing. But neither do I want representative groups to be assuming that decisions have been made in advance of any decision being made.